Well, Fawna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited to talk to you. You are young and beautiful, and you have so much going on for you. You just finished publishing this book, Sober Daughter, a memoir of grief, addiction, and recovery. Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tell, tell me a little bit about what that book writing process was like. That had to be intense.
It is intense. It is. I now understand why so many people don't want to write a book. It's it is like when they say, like a labor of love or like a creative baby. That's just like the fun part of it. I think there's just so much that goes into it. And I did it. I just jumped in. I didn't even plan ahead. I just kind of had this. Well, since I was young, I've always been a writer. And my mom's, favorite thing to say is, you have to write a book. You're going to write a book. You're going to write a book.
Wow.
And when I was younger, I was like, can you please stop saying that? Like, I'm going to do everything opposite of that. And yeah, my life, took crazy turns. And then I ended up having a really big story that I had to get out. Like it was just
Yeah.
that guttural feeling of like, I just have to get it out. I don't even know what that means. I just have to get it out.
Got to get it out. Well, listen, I think that this book is going to help a lot of people. And I think your story is amazing. We're going to jump into your story in a little bit, but I thought what we would do first is play a fun little game called the lightning round. Are you ready?
I think so.
You look terrified. It'll be fine. When you first got sober, was
Okay.
there a book that helped you the most when you first got sober? Something that really
Uh,
impacted you?
you know what? I was obsessed with The Power of Now
Same.
by Eckhart Tolle. I was I just I it was so otherworldly, and getting sober to me felt otherworldly. So I just like really I carried it with me everywhere. And I thought it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever read. I still love that book.
I know it's an amazing book. He's an amazing author. His sort of sophomore encore book was A New Earth, and that was also. Did you read that one too?
I have it. I haven't started.
Oh my goodness! When you get a chance, I think you'd really like that one. It's super
Oh,
good.
yeah. Anything he does, I'm here for it. He's brilliant. A
So
brilliant
good.
mind.
Um, and do you have a favorite quote or mantra, maybe like an idea that you live by that you keep coming back to?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. I feel like my brain is just a bunch of like affirmations to keep going. Um,
Do you want me to throw out a couple of mine? Maybe that'll spark an idea or give you a little
well,
time to think about.
I have one that's just always, it's actually tattooed on me, but
What
it's
is it?
progress, not perfection.
Oh my God, that was exactly what I was gonna say.
Really?
Yeah, that was gonna be like, well, I'll throw one out just to give you, just to stall a little bit, give you a chance to think. And that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, it hits all my little idiosyncrasies that I want to, like, don't worry about perfectionism, don't put it off, don't try and make it be this whole big thing. Just take little chunks
Yeah.
and just keep it pushing.
It's so interesting, this idea of perfection.
Yeah,
I think if we grow up with either a critical parent or some kind of low self-esteem, we overcompensate with perfectionism. And that sometimes can feel us leading paralyzed, don't you think?
absolutely. I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges I had, was to work through and kind of dismantle my
Mm,
perfectionism. And it absolutely came from, critical parents, but also internalizing my own lens of being so harsh on myself. And
yes.
that turned into, this lens that I would see everything of, if I'm not presenting a certain way, they'll actually see me. And if they actually see me, they'll see that I'm a big old mess. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really had to break that down so that I could just, allow myself to be human
Right.
and see other people as human and humanity, what a thought.
Yeah, I mean, it does, ultimately the work is about healing and having compassion for yourself and and for others too, right? Everyone makes mistakes. And I think those of us that struggle with that perfectionism, when we make a mistake, man, we're so hard on ourselves.
I know. And it's just it takes me back to the progress, not perfection, because
Yeah.
I I'm grateful that I get to try and that looks like mistakes.
Yeah.
And I have to reframe and look at that and see I would have never learned or seen that mistake if I hadn't tried. And
Right.
I'm willing to try, and then that gets me to I'm willing to make a mistake, and then that gets me to, oh, I'm willing to say I'm a beginner and I'm just learning. And then it gets you to a place where if maybe I know something, I'm able to see the other person and let them, have their own experience and their
Right.
own kind of stumbling blocks, which are all really just growth.
Absolutely. There's that Dan Millman book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. He talks about there are no mistakes, there are only lessons.
Hmm.
And a lesson is repeated until it's learned. And we have evidence of learned behavior, a lesson learned by a change in behavior. And it seems way more compassionate, doesn't it?
I mean, that wasn't what was running through my head a long time ago, but
Right.
that's where I try and stay now.
Right. Yeah. Listen, it's all about the power of now.
Oh,
See what I did there?
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah. um, let's see. Do you have a regular self care or recovery routine? Like, are there things that you do weekly or daily? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, my recovery routine is really threefold. I try really hard to stay in my spiritual practice. And for me, that just means prayer. That means meditation. That means connecting in the nature and
Mm,
feeling something bigger than myself, especially when the perfectionism or those things come on where I really need to like get it in perspective.
yeah, for sure.
And then mental and, just like for me, I'm in a program, I'm in support programs. So for me, that looks like working my program. I have a sponsor, I have people of a community that I'm a part of,
Yeah.
showing up for that community, being accountable for that community service, and moving my body.
I like exercise or somatic practices or
Like for me, for the perfectionism, I'm breaking that idea that I had to do something and do it really, really well and be like this idea. I literally just want to move my body. So if I'm like have a my steps, I want to hit certain steps. If I'm squatting, like I do squats randomly. I go to like I have a gym in my building, so I'll go there 3 times a
nice.
week. If somebody wants to hike, I'm like, let's go. Like I just try and be way more willing than I was before to just be active and just like
Yeah.
move.
Just move.
Just
Man,
move.
just move. Man, the pandemic did nothing for my ass, let me tell you.
I'm saying, I'm saying, like, just moving
Just moving.
because
Yeah.
I clearly could watch Netflix for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So
Isn't that
yeah,
funny?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
But
that's really good.
it helps me so much. I mean, I can tell if I mean, I have like a weird little, like frame of what my week looks like that I want to
Mhm.
be active in. And if I'm off, and if something comes up, like life happens, I can definitely feel like I'm like, oh, I need to go to the gym or
Yeah.
I need to check in and move and sweat and
Yeah.
yeah,
So good for your brain,
yeah,
especially. Yeah,
yeah.
not just the booty.
That's
Uh,
it.
right. What's one thing you wish you knew when you first got sober?
Oh gosh.
That was a tough one.
Damn, I wish I knew that I'm not supposed to know, because
Yeah.
I was so crippled at the beginning with like, oh my God, what are these people doing? What am I supposed to be doing? Am I doing it right? Am I asking the right questions? And it's like, I'm not supposed to know. I literally had never been sober before. Like
Yeah.
I was drinking since a very young age, at like 16. And for me to assume that I knew how to be sober and also live sober and conduct myself, no, I wasn't
No.
supposed to know. And that would have saved me a whole lot of panic attack.
Anxiety. Right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's actually a really good one. Yeah, we show up thinking that we have to know everything on day one.
Yeah. And why would we assume that?
Yeah, it's not funny.
Yeah,
What are you, perfectionist or something?
I know.
Workaholic much? I
Maybe. Yeah.
don't know. What do you do for fun these days?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm obsessed with just like pampering myself in ways that are for fun or for free. Like,
Yay.
because I used to think everything was, a price tag or whatever. And
Yeah.
now I'm just like, I grab some girlfriends, we go do like an outdoor sound bath, or we go to Big Bear, or we go like take the dogs out to the dog park, or I love concerts. You do pay for a concert, but
Mm.
I love me some R&B and a concert and just being outside. And I love going to different retreats. I'm like a nerd.
Ooh,
I'm always going to some kind of retreat.
I
I
love
just,
retreats.
right? Like, I just like, put me at like for a weekend, just not in my day to day. I think anything that's not in the day to day and just like an experience is fun to me.
That's what it is. It's the experiences, right? It's
Yeah.
I love that, the pampering for fun and for free stuff, but it's really about experiences now, right? And there's like, have you ever heard of Joe Dispenza?
Yes.
Oh my God,
Becoming
girl, I want to,
supernatural.
yeah. I want to go to he has a week-long retreat. I have some friends who've been and they all come back saying it was an amazing life-changing experience.
Oh, see, that's my jam. Like I will nerd out and have so much fun.
We should go to the one in Mexico. There's one in Cancun or something, I think
Okay,
next year.
see, I'm
Let's
sold.
go.
I'm sold.
We'll get all our friends together and we'll go.
That's a dream. Like that's
Right?
dreams. Like you're like
Yeah.
throwing a little new food, a little
Yeah.
something, a meeting in a different language or a different place. Like, yeah,
So
here,
fun.
here for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for playing along with our little lightning round. I always feel like I
Yeah,
learned so much and it leads to such good conversation when people talk about their favorite recovery resources and stuff, things they've learned.
I love that.
Let's talk a little bit about your recovery story. So you mentioned that you started drinking at 16. Um, why do you think you started drinking?
Well, for me, and I didn't understand, till I literally got sober, what alcoholism was, or identifying as an alcoholic. But I knew from a very young age I just wasn't like at ease. Like I
Mhm.
wasn't as like, oh, this is great, this is fun, like let's just be carefree. Like I wasn't. I was always consumed with like, I don't feel like I'm enough. I don't feel like I fit in. I don't feel comfortable. Like I just didn't. And I thought, that's just how you feel. And I also had, a very, oh, I have a dog. Sorry, he's doing too much.
That's okay.
I had two parents that were very, very loving and very kind, but they were very educational and education based and high performance, and to me, that felt very critical and very pressured. And my father is an Ethiopian immigrant from Ethiopia. And so growing up, I always had this notion of what I'm supposed to be like. And somehow I don't fit in that.
Yeah.
And I knew, and it was weird because my parents didn't drink. So I didn't have any alcohol in my house. I never had it like at a dinner. I'd never seen it. Like it wasn't like a staple to me. Like I just had no experience with it. But I knew that something was gonna take me away from whatever this fauna feeling was. And I drank, and I drank at a party that I was way too young to be at. But
Oh, that sounds like there's a story there.
well, I grew up in Hollywood.
Okay.
So there was a lot of that, but also again my norm was insane. So I just, thought that's what everybody did.
Was it
And
like a high school party or was it like an industry kind of party?
it was a birthday party for an older sister of a friend of mine.
Okay.
And by at that time, I was in an all girls private school. And so my parents weren't there. The pressure wasn't there. You know, the I don't know. I was just off to the races, and I didn't even know what it was, but I slammed it. And
Did someone hand you a drink or were you like, hey, give me
no,
one of
I
those? Or
I immediately they were making drinks with like what I'm assuming was whiskey. I can't even tell you because I don't remember. But they're making drinks and they're older. They're maybe like 18, 20. I don't think anyone's legal, but they're making drinks and I grabbed a Coke. I was drinking a Coca-Cola, and I just gave them my Coke can and I was like, put some of that in there. And they're like, what? I'm like, just put some of that. Like I had no idea how much or like what it does, anything. I was just put some in there. And I just remember taking a sip and that warm, fuzzy, like, oh, just like everything is good and you don't have to hear this, your brain. And I chugged it and I remember asking for another. And they were just like, what are you doing? And I kind of had, I was just like, I don't care, just do it. And then that's the last I remembered. And
wow.
apparently I was carried out by her older brother and sister, and I had vomited all over this girl's party.
Ooh, awkward.
Yeah.
Sounds like my first drunk.
Yeah.
Oh man, there is nothing worse than waking up the next morning and being like, oh, did you know? Or your friends being like, do you know what you did last night?
Nope.
Ooh. Do you
Nope.
remember bits and pieces of the night?
Nope.
Nothing. You blacked out
Blacked
right away.
blacked out right away.
Brutal. And then
Yeah.
you had to hear the stories. How did you feel the next morning when you heard the stories about what you did?
Um, that's when I realized I hate feelings. Is that like you telling me something intimately dis- disgusting about myself? I'm like, yeah, I'm not processing that. Like that's going one ear out the other, and I'm gonna drink again. I immediately was just like, oh, okay. Like, I'm still gonna drink. That's amazing. Fine. Like, I was like, I'm not gonna, and that's when like now looking back, like I major avoidance, like major just inability to see the truth and to feel feelings.
Mm.
Um, I just couldn't do it.
I mean,
I
it sounds like you completely like the next day, like you black out, and then the next day you hear all this stuff. It's like so painful. I mean, that's what disassociation and disconnection is all about.
absolutely
Yeah, that's brutal.
disconnected.
And so how did it go after that? So was it like, I mean, you're probably not drinking every day at 16. How did it progress for you?
Um, well, you're exactly right. It did not go like that. That was my intro, but also I had the idea that I was just gonna, you know, follow along and kind of the Hollywood like grow up scene and just party with my friends and drink on, whenever, binge drink, and then start getting ready to like graduate and go to college and like, it'd be this like I always thought that they were milestones because
Hmm.
I had such a different household that I wanted these American kind of milestones so badly. Like
Oh, yeah.
I wanted the parties and the graduation and the off to college and you get drunk. And I mean, of course, see, I'm still saying those are my ideals of milestones. Those are not normal people's milestones.
Yeah, they are, rites of passage. That's what we
Yeah.
have. That's what we have here.
Yeah.
School and graduations and all that.
But it didn't end up like that for me. I mostly just drank, knowing that it was an escape for me. And I really early on knew it was like a best friend.
Mm.
I never seemed to drink like my friends since the beginning. It was always a solution. And I didn't get to do the fun milestones and party things because when I was 16, around that same time, unbeknownst to me, um, my father was diagnosed with leukemia.
You didn't know?
He knew, but he didn't
Um,
tell me.
and you were around 16 years old?
Hmm.
Oh my God.
Actually, no, wait, 16 was when it became visibly noticeable and like he would start to talk about it to some people, but he had known for 7 years and did not tell me and swore my entire family and friend group, well, my family is just me and my mom and dad, but extended people, that they were not allowed to tell me that he was sick.
Oh. How do you feel
So
about that now? Do you think he spared you a lot of pain and suffering, or do you wish he would have told you?
I feel like either way is
Horrible.
exactly horrible. At the
Yeah.
time, once I figured it out, because I was really angry when I started noticing, like I talk about it in my book, but I was really angry when I started noticing changes in his behavior and changes in his health. And it was this gaslighting of like, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing
Oh,
wrong.
he denied it.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that's, my father was a very big presence. He was a very kind, wonderful father. And to him, I know in his mind, he's like, there's no way you are going to tell my little girl that I'm not going to be here. Like, you guys cannot tell her. But I'm spinning in my mind and I can't get answers from him and I can't tell anybody because nobody knows. And so that reinforced again, I'm going to go back to my best friend and I'm going to drink. And I would drink at night and I would drink to go to sleep. And then finally, around 17-ish, um, he finally couldn't stop hiding it anymore. He was, rapidly losing weight and falling and, all these kinds of things. And then my mom and dad told, I basically cornered them in a room and said, what's wrong? And, my mom looked at me and said, I need you to go on the computer, because they weren't great at computers, and look up cures for leukemia. And I was like, oh, it hit me like
a ton of bricks.
And yeah, and so then, all plans are off. I'm not going away to school. I'm not doing any of those things. And I ended up, kind of focusing all my energy in helping my dad and hospicing my dad.
Mm.
And it
Your
was,
your father passed away when you were 19?
yeah,
Wow, that's so for 2 years, right? 2, 3 years you were caring for your dying father. Did
uh,
you know that he was dying?
towards the end, they kept saying like all kinds of stuff, like, we're gonna try this radical thing, or we're gonna set. I was driving him to City of Hope in outside of LA for these
Mhm.
really intensive infusions, and like sitting and like, we were like trying whatever, and so it was like a denial fantasy. It was just this wild denial fantasy that turned out to be exactly what my mom would do to me after that. But
What do you mean?
well, I did end up hospicing my dad, and he did not end up, making it, and he
Right.
passed away. And it became me and my mom, and we my mom went into severe denial, that like he had gone, and what were we going
Mm.
to do, and it was just her and I. And for the next like 5 years, we became this enmeshed, toxic, codependent unit of just trying to be everything for my mom, and
Mhm.
also like work, and try and like, because now our household has gone from two incomes to one, and just juggling a million things. And what I would find out again from my mom is that she also had been sick. And I did not know that she had been diabetic for years, and had never treated it, or never talked about it, or never, not
She
once.
needed she needed insulin shots and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like she needed full treatment. She needed,
And she wasn't doing anything?
no.
Wow.
So my mom ended up getting extremely ill, and then I ended up hospicing my mom in the same house, in the same room where my
Oh
dad died.
my God. It was like a reoccurring nightmare.
It was on it was the most gut-wrenching, just unbelievable. I mean, I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't speak it. So I carried that with me for so long that I knew the only way I could get it out was to write the book.
Right.
Because I was like, I don't have words for what's
No.
going on in my life right
So you
now.
were 24 when your mother passed away? 24, 25?
No, she was about 8 years later.
About
And
8 years.
then we tried that same kind of triage for 2 years. And so I tried to get her to specialists and tried to do all these radical treatments. And again, I went into this denial that, I can save her. And it
Oh.
just got progressively worse. And my mom finally passed away when I'm still in this idea that, we're going to beat it, we're going to beat it. And she went into um, complete organ failure. And once that final piece was removed for me, like, there's no more saving anyone, there's no more caretaking, there's no more hope, there's no more anything. Me and alcohol made a bet. And we were like, it's off to the races. I mean, I committed that day when she passed away that it was gonna just be me and alcohol. And that was the beginning of my bottom. I mean, my pit.
Yeah, that's a yeah. And so I'm so sorry about the loss of your parents. That's terrible. I recently lost my mom and I know what that feels like. And
Yes.
yeah, my dad was my I lost my dad 3 years ago, but he was, he was older and yeah,
Yeah.
it was a very different situation. So
It's still so hard.
yeah, so hard. And you were so young when all that happened. So and it doesn't sound like you had any family to support you through that. Is that true?
No, I mean, I'm not discrediting, that my mom and dad had so many wonderful family friends, uh,
Mm-hmm.
but nuclear family, it was me, my mom, and dad.
Okay.
And the thread that they committed me to was that we don't tell anybody this business. So nobody knew that what was going on in this house, our house.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so common. This idea of we don't like people holding their secrets close, that idea that you're only sick as your secrets, that's like we don't tell people what's, about our pain. We don't ask for help. I don't know what that
Absolutely.
is. Yeah. It just leads to such a dark place.
It's one of the most counterintuitive, but also just damaging ways to exist, is this idea that, you're alone and you
Alone.
also have to hide, this pain. And the pain, what I learned, manifests, it's not hiding. As much as we want to believe that it's hiding, it is not hiding.
Mm-mm.
It comes out, and it comes out violently. It comes out depression. It comes out suicide. It comes out maladaptive skills. It comes out however it needs to. So the idea that, I could even keep these secrets was a lie I told myself, but I was so sick, just from holding this trauma alone.
There it is. Holding the trauma alone. Yeah, it will make us sick. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So you go through this period of time where you're basically just unregulated drinking,
yeah.
right? And how long does that period of time last for? Like what happened? What happened during that time?
I didn't last long. I didn't, because I went on a mission, and it was just about, I think I want to say maybe under a year or a year, and I just locked myself up in my family house,
Hmm.
and I didn't touch anything. I still had my mom's easel from the funeral with the dead flowers, and I had
Oh,
all of their things, and I locked myself in there and I drank a handle of vodka. Like, just maybe I'd have, like, I could go through one in like 2, 3 days.
wow.
And
That's a
that's
lot of
it.
booze.
That's a lot of booze. And this was delivery. So I didn't have to see anybody.
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't have to talk to anybody. And I really was on a mission to just die.
Yeah. Drown the
Yeah.
pain. I totally get that. What happened that you ended up in recovery? Was there like did you hit a bottom? Was there like a singular event or was it a series of events?
It was singular. Um,
Mm,
I was so far removed, that I had stopped eating, and I had stopped communicating with the world. So I started having seizures, by myself. And thankfully, somebody, caught on that I'm just like alone, crashing around. And couple calls from my neighbors to friends that they knew, because I grew up, in the same area, in the same house with the same friends. So it was easy to, like, be like, what's Fawna doing? And they're like, we don't know. She's not answering our calls. And then they finally the seizures were, getting so bad that the ambulance would show up, and and they would call my friend, and my good friend, one of my best friends, he said, this is not going to happen. And he was at work, and I mean, I know it now. I had could no recollection at the time. And he said,
Secondhand stories.
yeah, they're telling me about my intervention.
Wow.
Yeah. And so he said, oh, we're going to go to breakfast. I'm going to take you to breakfast. You need to eat. And I tried a million times to get out of it. And he said, nope, sit down. You're going to go to breakfast. You need to eat something. And immediately I'm like, where can I have a mimosa? Can I have a drink? And he said, no, there's no alcohol here. And I said, wait a minute. What? And he said, Fawna, none of us have lost a parent or anyone who's died yet. And two, and your all family is gone. We don't know how to help you. And we don't know what to say, and we don't know what to do. And we want to get you help. And I
Wow.
remember the combination, and this was paramount for me with grief, was one, somebody validating that they did not know this experience and that I was in uncharted territory by myself. And two, that I was in excruciating pain. And three, that there was some miracle place or something that could help me, because
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with support groups or, therapy and all these modalities and like reaching out and assistance. I had no idea that things like that existed. So I thought, if I don't make it, that's just, I don't make it. And I just remember I sighed this relief, and I just looked at my friend and I said, they're going to help me.
Hmm.
And he said, let's try. And I packed a bag and was on a plane. They had pulled together money for me. And I woke up in Utah.
You woke up in Utah. You went to treatment in Utah.
I went to treatment in Utah. Had never heard of treatment. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know AA existed. I didn't know people were alcoholics. I was so like green. I just was like,
You just hadn't been exposed to any of that.
no, I knew the dark side of it. Like I knew, over,
Yeah.
over and partying in the hot. Like I knew that. I didn't
Yeah.
know the support side of it.
Right. You're right.
I didn't know.
The recovery side.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay. So you did like a 30-day inpatient treatment center type thing?
Well, that again, I didn't. I'm a weirdo. No, I got there, and I was so bad that I had to be detoxed for uh, 10 days, which was beyond their limit. And I was in alcoholic psychosis, and I had wet brain stage 2, and I couldn't talk, I couldn't walk. My muscles had atrophied. Uh,
Wow.
so they were getting ready to just charge me to the psychiatric mental hospital, and
Wow.
I don't know what happened. It's in the book. It's the craziest. I don't even know myself to this day what happened. But I was hallucinating. I was talking to people that weren't there. I was having a full, and I just snapped out of it.
You just got clarity and just came to?
Yep. I just was talking to someone, and in my brain, they were someone else, and I was somewhere else. And I just just came to, and they were like, Fawna. And I was like, yes. They're like, can you see me? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh my God.
That is crazy. You just kind of snap back into your body.
Yes.
That's wild. And then
So
they sent you to treatment?
yeah. So
Okay.
of course I had to stay much longer. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I did 90, no, yeah, 90 days. And then I did the entire step down process. So I did
Okay.
90 days. Then I went to extended care for 90 days. Then I went to sober living. And then I went to an apartment, sober apartment.
Wow. That is quite a journey. Um,
Hum-
so here
Humbling,
we are. Yeah. Here
humbling.
we are looking back at this crazy experience that you had. And so you got sober in 2019. That's like right in the middle of the pandemic, huh?
It was right, yeah, right before. I think, yeah, I think we
Yeah,
started.
like right before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had like 1 year of, I think it was like we started in like 2020.
Okay.
And so I had gotten out on my own, but I still was, very shaky. And now I had to navigate Los Angeles recovery. And
Wow, I hear Los Angeles recovery is really good.
it's the most, I mean, I'm biased,
Of
but
course.
to me, it was, I mean, I'm an LA native,
Yeah.
and to see my city from a whole new lens, like, I was like, you guys come here in the day? Like, there's like, this place exists? Like, I thought this was a parking lot. Like, it was just wild. I felt like a kid, like, exploring the city, and it was so communicative, like, it was just very community based.
Yeah.
Um, but I did learn very early on from my recovery that because I was so far off and so traumatized,
Hmm.
that safety was paramount for me. So
Yeah.
I was women's only for meetings, recovery, um, my therapists, my clinicians, my sponsor, my friend community group were women.
All women. Yeah. I find that to be really important. There's a lot of the court system is sending people to 12-step meetings that really truly don't belong there. Right. And so the women, there's a lot of predatory behavior. So women really need to be careful. Right. I remember I got sober in 94. Even then, the women would pull me aside
Amazing.
and be, yeah, they would pull me aside and be like, you need to go to women's meetings. You're
Oh,
25 years old. You
I
need to go to
agree.
women's meetings.
I mean, everybody responds to different ways, like everybody's live and let live kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think especially when you're in younger sobriety, I mean, people are getting
Mhm.
sober younger and younger
Yeah.
and
That's
younger.
great. Yeah.
Amazing. And then they're also realizing that, the younger people that are coming in have had way more experience than, before, when they thought marijuana was a gateway drug and like these kinds of soft ideas. I mean, they're coming in with maybe, been on the streets and heroin for
Hardcore
years
usage.
and
Yeah.
fentanyl and, you
Ugh.
know, um, when your brain and you're still developing, and your growth might have stopped at 12,
Yeah.
and you're going back into this community by yourself, as a young person, still navigating like what's real, what's not, what's safe, what's this. I think young people's meetings are amazing.
Yeah, if you can
I
get
think,
to them.
yeah, LA has tons. And men's meetings and women's meetings. And also LGBTQ and queer meetings are super important. It's like
Mhm.
representation matters.
I was going to ask you about that. In some of the information I got from your people, they talked about, a lack of resources or representation for women of color. Can you speak to that? To like, well, how did that affect you? Because you grew up in a very eclectic neighborhood with all kinds of different people. What did you see missing in the recovery community?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I clearly was, skewed because I was around so much diversity from a
Right.
very young age. Um, that when I did come into recovery, and I would continuously be the one woman of color in the room, in the building, in the facility, in the state, and like,
Wow.
um it's absolutely what some people call an outside issue. But when you are in the rooms, and there are, systematic things outside that can contribute to your sobriety, and you don't see that in the meeting or in the community of somebody that you can share that with, hold that pain with. Remember, we talked about sharing the pain and not and the
Hmm.
secret. If there's not some person that you can give that to, that can honor it and see it, it creates a lot of barriers, and it's very difficult. So there's a lot of young people's meetings, and there's a lot of women that are, women of color, indigenous, that are, from certain areas, that don't get maybe the fancier meeting rooms, or the
Mm.
softer modalities of bringing sound baths in, or bringing, and
Girl,
and
I
we're
don't even know what that is. You said sound bath earlier, and I'm like, I'm from Silicon Valley. I still don't know what that is.
it's amazing.
Is it? What is it? What's a sound bath?
It's musical frequencies that raise or balance your vibrations, your
Oh, is
harmonic
that what the
vibration.
I those YouTube videos that are like, oh, 84 megahertz to restore.
Yeah.
Oh, is
Mhm.
that what that is?
Yep.
I do that all the time.
See?
I
Do
didn't know that that's
that.
I
Go
didn't
for
know what that was.
it.
Okay. All
Yes.
right.
But there's brilliant women that are, that have amazing recovery, that
Yeah.
are, women of color, women, that are in recovery, work in recovery, where they might be the only Black or, Latina or Asian, clinician or recovery advocate in their entire agency.
That's
And
amazing. It's really surprising to me.
it's not.
It's not surprising?
No, I just think, we got that's it's we got to collaborate,
Yeah.
and pool resources, and bring, you know, what so many people experience as top shelf recovery, like the very, elite, the very expensive, the very, all encompassing, and, bring some of that, and bring, cultural, identities into it. There are, one of the biggest components of staying sober is being able to see longevity with it, and that means connecting it
Right.
to your culture.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, if you get sober in a bubble and it's all predominantly white, and you're Native American, or you're African American or African, and you go home, and there's no wellness, there's no community, meetings, there's no sponsor there for you. How do you stay sober? And you can, clearly, because we do, but also there are so many people that are bridging that divide,
There you go.
and, creating resources, bringing stuff into communities that normally don't have, some of the more, pampered ideas, and,
Mhm.
crossing those resources. And I'm working with amazing women that are head of boards, are head clinicians, are, you know, recovery advocates, and just being there to like speak on panels, to speak on um, you know, meetings that they're talking about what does the prison experience look like when you're trying to get sober, and what and the parallels of systematic racism within that, and you know how you're treated if you're a young white person with a drug addiction or you're a young brown person with the drug addiction. And it's just, you know, it's an entire world, and I happen to be very passionate about it. And I think that there's so many people to be helped, and to think that it's like monolithic and like one way is doing a disservice. And so I just want to be a part of inclusion and like creating more avenues and more representation.
It's so important. Your visibility is so important. Is so important to so many.
I hope.
And I know you have a website where people can get a hold of you, the good work, WRK.
The good work. Yes,
Good work.
I've really,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, for those, you are a resource. You know, I know that well, maybe I shouldn't speak for you. Do you want to tell me a little bit about what kind of services you offer and how, if there are people of color or anybody really who wants to get a hold of you to do some of this work, you know, how do you help people? I mean, you have the book, which is amazing. I think that's super important, and you're doing your public service, you know, work as well. But how do you work with people one on one?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I do recovery coaching, and that's specifically in line with, you know, alcohol and drug
Hmm.
counseling, and
Hmm.
taking people that might not fit into the typical mold of like a treatment center, or they have been through, you know, a 30-day program or something that, but they want, you know, stability, and they want to build skills, and they want to build tools, and they want to engage in the community, and they want resources, and they want to get plugged in. And my point of like the good work is that it's ongoing, it's continuous,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So it's like always looking at like what are barriers for our sober big beautiful life, and what are we willing to look at, and what are we willing to let go of and dismantle, while bringing in skills based, strength based, core based, like smart goals and actual tangible results, so that you're seeing, you know, some market progress. That is
Yeah.
not a sponsor, because we all need sponsors. And
Right.
that is to, you know, unload, and to mentally and spiritually and hopefully communitively be a part of. But it's the skills, it's what
Right.
comes when you do sometimes get to go to those fancier places. And it's life skills and tools, and navigating and achieving goals, and also kind of living your highest life in sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. I love that you. I know you have you're updating your website with workshops and things like that. So I'll leave a link to your website in the show
Yeah.
notes so that those who are resonating with you can reach out to you and work with you. I mean, there is so much need out there, and I just applaud you for all the work that you've done. And you're so young, you have such a bright career ahead of you, and I just see you helping so many people. So thank you so much for joining me today and sharing
Thank
your
you.
story.
Thank you so much. I loved being a part of this. And this is just, you are also doing amazing sacred work. So
Thank you so much.
thank you for having
I
me.
look forward to talking with you soon.
Yes, can't wait.
Yay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.